Your sister deserves this vacation more than we need a baby. My husband's voice crackled through the phone, attempting to sound confident but betraying a hint of nervousness. I've already transferred our IVF savings to her account. I stood in our kitchen, my hand gripping the counter as I processed his words. The $45,000 we'd spent 3 years saving, the money that represented our hopes and dreams of starting a family, gone. Given to his sister Emma for a luxury European vacation. Perfect, I replied, my voice steady. Thanks for letting me know. There was a pause on the other end. This wasn't the reaction David had expected. He'd been prepared for tears, for anger, for the emotional outburst he'd grown accustomed to dismissing as my baby fever. Instead, he got calm acceptance. Look, Olivia, he started, his tone shifting to the condescending one he perfected over our 8 years of marriage. Emma's been through a rough divorce. She needs this break. We can always save up again for the IVF. You're only 34, there's plenty of time. I looked down at the papers on the counter in front of me, documents I'd received just 2 weeks ago from my doctor. Papers that would have shattered David's convenient narrative about plenty of time. Papers that made his betrayal even more devastating. You're right, I said, surprising myself with how easily the lie came. Emma deserves this. I hope she has a wonderful time. Really? David sounded suspicious now. That's it, no argument? No argument, I confirmed. I need to go, I'm running late for my shift at the hospital. I hung up before he could respond, before the trembling in my hands could reach my voice. As a pediatric nurse, I learned to keep my composure in crisis situations. Right now, that training was the only thing keeping me together. 2 weeks ago, my doctor had called me in for a private consultation. The results of my latest fertility tests showed that my condition was deteriorating rapidly. If we wanted to conceive through IVF, we needed to act within the next 3 months. After that, my chances would drop dramatically. I hadn't told David yet. I'd been waiting for the right moment, gathering resources, and making plans. Now I realized I'd been right to keep it to myself. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. OMG sis. David told me what he did. You're the best for understanding. Can't wait to post pics from Paris. Love you. I stared at the message, remembering all the times Emma had competed with me for David's attention and resources. The emergencies that always seemed to coincide with our important moments. The way she talked David out of our previous IVF attempt 2 years ago because she needed help with her down payment. Family comes first. She'd insisted, while David nodded along. My hands stopped shaking. A strange calm settled over me as pieces clicked into place. All those years of playing second fiddle to Emma's needs, of watching David prioritize his sister's whims over our future, they'd been leading to this moment. I opened my laptop and logged into our joint account. As expected, David had cleaned it out. All our careful saving, the extra shifts I picked up, the bonuses I contributed, transferred to Emma's account that morning. What David didn't know was that I'd seen this coming. 6 months ago, after Emma's divorce, I'd watched her eyeing our savings with that familiar calculating look. I'd started preparing then, opening a separate account at a different bank. Every extra shift, every bonus for the past 6 months had gone there instead of our joint account. I even sold some of my jewelry, pieces David had never noticed anyway. The joint account he'd emptied, it contained exactly what I'd calculated Emma might convince him to take. The real IVF fund was safe, along with something else David had forgotten about, proof of every penny I contributed to our joint savings, documented meticulously over the years. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Dr. Torres, my fertility specialist. Appointment confirmed for next week. All paperwork ready as discussed. I took a deep breath and began gathering what I needed. 8 years of marriage had taught me a lot about David and Emma's pattern of behavior. Now it was time to put that knowledge to use. As I prepared for my shift at the hospital, I thought about all the times David had dismissed my concerns about his sister's influence. You're being paranoid, he'd say. Emma's family. Well, he was right about one thing. Family does come first. As I walked through the hospital corridors during my shift, memories of the past 8 years played through my mind like a movie reel. Each scene revealed a pattern I'd been too loyal, too trusting to acknowledge. The time David postponed our honeymoon because Emma had a crisis with her then-husband. The anniversary he missed because Emma needed help moving. Every milestone in our marriage seemed to have Emma's shadow looming over it. Olivia, Sarah, my colleague at the pediatric ward, called out. Everything okay? You seem distracted. I managed a small smile. David gave our IVF savings to Emma for her vacation fund. Sarah's face went through a range of emotions: shock, anger, and finally, understanding. She was one of the few people who knew about my separate account and my contingency plans. So it finally happened, she said quietly, pulling me into the break room. What are you going to do? I pulled out my phone and showed her the email I'd received that morning from my lawyer. Remember Jake Harrison, the attorney whose daughter I helped through chemo last year? Sarah nodded, her eyes scanning the email. He's agreed to take your case. Pro bono, I confirmed. He says given the documentation I have, plus David's latest stunt, we have a strong case for financial misconduct during marriage. Does David know you've been documenting everything? I shook my head. He never paid attention to the financial stuff. Too busy managing Emma's life to notice what was happening in his own home. My phone buzzed with another text from Emma. Just booked first-class tickets. This is going to be amazing. Thanks again for being so understanding. Sarah read the message over my shoulder and scoffed. She's really rubbing it in, isn't she? Let her, I replied, my voice steady. Every message, every post, every font is just more evidence. During my lunch break, I called Dr. Torres to confirm the details of our plan. As one of the top fertility specialists in the state, she had connections with several clinics that offered financing options. Between my separate savings and their program, we could proceed with the IVF as planned. Are you sure you want to do this alone? She asked gently. I'm sure, I replied. I've spent 8 years waiting for David to choose our family over his sister's demands. I'm done waiting. When I got home that evening, David was waiting. He had that familiar look, the one that meant Emma had convinced him he was right and I was being unreasonable. Emma's so excited about the trip, he started, as if we were discussing something as trivial as dinner plans. She's already planned the whole itinerary. Paris, Rome, Barcelona. Sounds wonderful, I said, heading to the kitchen to start dinner. I'm sure she'll have an amazing time. He followed me, thrown off by my continued calm. Look, I know you're probably upset deep down, but Emma needs this. After everything with her ex-husband. David, I interrupted, turning to face him. I said it was fine. What more do you want from me? He stood there, mouth slightly open, clearly unprepared for this version of me. The version that wasn't begging for explanations or fighting for his attention. I just want you to understand, he stammered. I understand perfectly, I replied, my voice level. Now I have an early shift tomorrow, so I'm going to head to bed early. As I lay in bed that night, listening to David watching TV downstairs, I thought about the appointment scheduled with Jake Harrison for tomorrow. About the file of evidence I collected over the years. About the IVF procedures scheduled for next month. David had made his choice. Now it was time for me to make mine. My phone lit up with one last text from Emma. Just bought the cutest outfits for my trip. Can't wait to post all the pics. You're seriously the best sister-in-law ever. I smiled in the darkness, thinking about how different things would look in just a few weeks. Emma had no idea she was documenting her own downfall, one gleeful post at a time. Tomorrow would be the first step toward my new future. With or without David, I was going to have the family I always dreamed of. And no one, not even his precious sister, would stand in my way this time. The next morning, I met with Jake Harrison in his office downtown. The space was warm and professional, much like Jake himself. He spread out the documents I provided on his mahogany desk, nodding as he reviewed them. This is thorough, he said, picking up the detailed record of my contributions to the joint account. Most people don't think to document everything so carefully. 8 years of watching my savings disappear into Emma's emergencies taught me to keep receipts, I replied. Jake leaned back in his chair, his expression serious. The transfer to Emma's account yesterday, that's what we call the smoking gun. It shows a clear pattern of financial misconduct and misuse of marital assets. I pulled out my phone, showing him Emma's latest social media posts. Designer shopping sprees, first-class ticket confirmations, luxury hotel bookings, all paid for with our IVF fund. She's not exactly being subtle about it, Jake observed, taking screenshots. This actually works in our favor. Have you told David about your medical situation? I shook my head. Not yet. I wanted to secure my position first. Smart, he nodded. Given the time-sensitive nature of your condition and the fact that he gave away funds specifically saved for medical treatment, we can request an emergency hearing. As Jake outlined our strategy, my phone buzzed with a text from David. Emma's so happy. I knew you'd understand once you had time to think about it. You're amazing, babe. I showed the message to Jake, who added it to our growing file. He's building our case for us, he mused. Does he have any idea you're here? No, I replied. He thinks I'm at work. I took a personal day. Good. I'd like to file everything today. The sooner we move, the better our position. Jake gathered the papers into a folder. Are you ready for what comes next? Once we file, there's no going back. I thought about the years of putting my dreams on hold, of watching David consistently choose his sister's wants over our needs. I'm ready. That afternoon, while David was at work, I went to the bank and closed our joint credit cards. Jake had advised me to protect myself financially before the paperwork was served. I also withdrew my portion of our remaining joint savings, a measly $3,000 that Emma hadn't managed to convince David to share. When I got home, there was a package waiting on the doorstep. Inside was a framed photo of Emma with a note. For your living room, so you can see how amazing the money was spent. Love you. The audacity might have hurt once. Now it just strengthened my resolve. I was preparing dinner when David came home, whistling. He stopped short when he saw me calmly setting the table for one. Where's my plate? He asked, confusion evident in his voice. I think you should eat at Emma's tonight, I replied evenly. She'll probably want to show you all her new purchases. Are you angry? He seemed genuinely puzzled. I thought you were okay with this. I'm not angry, David. I'm done. I placed a manila envelope on the table. You've been served. His face went from confusion to shock as he opened the envelope. Divorce papers? This is ridiculous. All this over Emma's vacation? No, I said quietly. This is about 8 years of watching you choose your sister over our marriage. The vacation fund was just the final straw. You're overreacting, he sputtered. We can save up again for the IVF. Actually, we can't. I handed him the medical documents I'd been keeping to myself. I needed that treatment within the next 3 months. But don't worry, I'm still getting it. Just not with you. The color drained from his face as he read the doctor's report. Why didn't you tell me? Would it have mattered? I asked. Would you have said no to Emma? His silence was all the answer I needed. I have an IVF appointment next month, I told him. I'm doing it on my own, with my own money you and Emma can't touch. I suggest you start looking for a place to stay. Your sister has plenty of room, I hear. Olivia, please, he started, but I cut him off. Check your credit cards before you leave. They're closed. And don't bother checking the joint account. I've withdrawn my portion. You can keep the rest, though I suspect Emma's already got plans for it. As David stood there, stunned and speechless, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. 8 years of compromising, of coming second, of watching my dreams slip away. It was finally over. And my new beginning was just around the corner. 2 months later, I sat in Dr. Torres' office, staring at the ultrasound screen with tears in my eyes. Against all odds, the first round of IVF had been successful. I was pregnant. Congratulations, Dr. Torres smiled warmly. Your numbers look excellent. I'd say all that careful planning paid off. As I left the clinic clutching my ultrasound photos, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my lawyer. Final divorce hearing scheduled for next week. Emma's vacation posts have been invaluable evidence. Emma's European adventure had turned into a social media spectacle. Designer shopping sprees, luxury hotels, champagne-soaked yacht parties, all meticulously documented on Instagram. Each post had been carefully added to our court documentation, proving exactly where our IVF savings had gone. David's attempts to justify the situation had grown increasingly desperate. Emma needed this break, he'd argued during mediation. It was a mental health necessity. The mediator had been unimpressed, especially when presented with Emma's social media feed. Mental health necessity, she questioned, looking at photos of Emma partying in St. Tropez. This looks more like reckless spending of marital assets. I pulled into my new apartment complex, a cozy place closer to the hospital where I worked. Sarah was waiting outside with a care package. Well, she asked eagerly as I approached. Wordlessly, I handed her the ultrasound photo. Her squeal of delight echoed across the parking lot. "I'm going to be an aunt," she exclaimed, hugging me tight. "Have you told anyone else yet?" "Just you," I replied. "I'm waiting until after the divorce is finalized next week." Inside over tea, Sarah updated me on the latest gossip. Emma had returned from Europe to find her own financial situation in shambles. The vacation had burned through not just our IVF money, but her own savings as well. She tried to hit David up for more money, Sarah reported, but apparently his accounts are all frozen pending the divorce settlement. I sipped my tea, thinking about the irony. How did he respond? From what I heard, he finally said no to her. First time for everything, I guess. The day of the final hearing arrived bright and clear. I dressed carefully in a conservative navy suit, the slight swell of my pregnancy still barely visible beneath the jacket. David and Emma were both there, looking considerably less polished than in their recent social media posts. Emma's designer vacation wardrobe couldn't hide the panic in her eyes as our lawyer presented the financial evidence. The judge was particularly interested in the timing, how the money had been taken just when it was most crucial for medical treatment. "Mr. Mitchell," she addressed David, "you deliberately misappropriated funds that were saved for time-sensitive medical treatment, giving them to your sister for a luxury vacation. Do you understand the severity of this action?" David's response was quiet. "I didn't know about the time sensitivity. Because you never asked," I interjected softly. "You never asked about anything that didn't involve Emma." The judge's ruling was decisive. Given the documented financial misconduct and the medical circumstances, I was awarded a significant portion of our assets. Emma was ordered to repay her portion of the misappropriated funds, though we all knew that was unlikely to happen. As we left the courthouse, David tried to approach me one last time. "Olivia," he called out, "I'm sorry. I know now what I did was wrong. Maybe we could." I turned to face him, my hand instinctively resting on my stomach. His eyes widened as he noticed the gesture, realization dawning on his face. "You're?" "Yes," I said simply. "I am, and this baby will grow up knowing that they were wanted, planned for, and chosen first. Always." I walked away without looking back, leaving David standing there with Emma, who was already complaining about the repayment order. 6 months later, as I sat in my newly decorated nursery, I received a final text from David. "I understand now what I lost. I hope you and the baby have the life you deserve." I looked around the peaceful room, at the life I built for myself and my growing baby, and smiled. We already did. Sarah brought over dinner that evening, and as we sat talking about the future, about baby names and nursery colors and all the joy ahead, I felt complete. The path hadn't been what I expected, but it had led me exactly where I needed to be. My hand rested on my growing belly, feeling the baby kick. "We're going to be just fine, little one," I whispered. Just fine indeed. And we were.